Yeah, the last session we were discussing about constructor. We'll continue with what a constructor is. So what is a constructor? Constructor is a special method. Okay, constructor is a special method which has the same name as class name. Okay, so remember this rule. First you remember this rule. First point is every class in Java, okay, or in Java, these 2 points you have to remember. In Java, related to constructor, you can remember like this. Every class, okay, class means here we can classify it as 3 types. We'll be seeing it later, you'll understand. One is class, the other one is subclass, one more is abstract class. Abstract class. Okay, all these 3 we classify them as class. Okay, has a constructor. In Java, every class has a constructor, no doubt about it. If you don't write, what will happen? A default constructor will be added. If you don't write any constructor in your source file, when you compile, the compiler will add the default constructor. So it's guaranteed that every class has a constructor. That is guaranteed. In Java, every class has a constructor. Don't bother about other languages, but in Java, this is how they are designed. Every class has to be is going to have a constructor. Next point. Okay, and here we can take one sub point. Interface does not have a constructor. Anyway, that's one more data type. We'll be seeing it later. Interface does not have a constructor. This is one more point. Or you can put it in bracket. Sub point or whatever it is, no problem. Interface does not have a constructor. The next point. Okay. When you create every new object, constructor has to be executed. So a new object cannot be created without the execution of what? Constructor. Means for every new object, in Java this is true, for every new object a constructor has to get executed. For every new object getting created, a constructor has to get executed. So means other way around, if the constructor is not getting executed, what happens? Object has not been created. Ulta also I can take. Understood? These 2 rules in Java is mandatory. These 2 things. Clear? For every new object getting created, a constructor has to get executed. So only when the constructor completes execution, we say the object has been created successfully. The constructor should complete execution. Then only we say the object has been created successfully. These 2 points you have to remember. This is true in Java. I don't know about C, C++. C there is no story of constructor, leave it. But in C++, okay, don't bother. But in Java they have designed it like this. Are you clear this? So based on this, we'll start seeing more topics now. So remember this, every class, first point is every class has a constructor, no doubt about it. If you don't write, default one is added. And here an object has to be created successfully means the constructor has to get executed. Okay. So then constructor is a special class which has the same name as class name, and they have designed it specially for the purpose of what? Initialization only, nothing else. They have technically designed the constructor for initializing what? The state of the object, or initializing the instance variables. Okay, see, all objects contain state. Understand this point very clearly. All objects contain state, means some values they will be storing, and all the objects will store the values where? In instance variable. So it's 2 statement, but meaning is same. The 2 statements meaning is same only. So constructor is used for initializing instance variables, also correct. Constructor is used for initializing the state of the object, also correct. But technically we should say it's used for initializing the state of the object only, technically. Okay, but if you see it normally, it is like what? It is used for initializing the instance variables. So constructor has been deliberately designed for that purpose only. So let's see that now. Class box. So we are seeing how to write the constructor now. The focus is on the constructor now. Int WH. See, we are learning how to write the class. That you don't forget. That is the main thing. In the class, we are learning how to add members one by one. While writing a class, we are learning how to add members one by one. Like how to add variables, then how to add methods. Next, we are learning how to write constructors. One by one, we are covering. Okay, once we are clear with all this, then we can write a good class. Okay, so we are learning it separately. So we are learning how to write the members of the class. So that point you always keep focusing. At the same time, we are individually focusing on what now? Constructor. Okay, so our constructor is which one now? Our constructor is a special method which has the same name as class name. See, the name of this method and the name of this class is what? Same. So this is what is called as a constructor. So I can I can write any code here. You can write any code here. It's a special method, but generally always the kind of code, what kind of a code you write here? Initialization code only. Why we write initialization code here? Can you guess? It is executed only once. Do not forget that. A code written in a constructor is executed only once. They have designed it like that. Later on it can never be executed. Okay, it is executed only once during the creation of object. They have designed it in such a way that it is executed only during the creation of object, new object. Okay, so how many ever new objects you create, that many times the constructor gets executed in every new object. Means in one object, one constructor gets executed. One more object you create, there also it gets executed. One more object you create, there also the constructor gets executed. So as you go on creating the objects, this constructor has been designed to execute once. Only once, that's it. In one object, once it will be executed. So this is how they have designed it. And see, methods you can write. And these methods can be called n number of times. These methods can be called n number of times. Okay, so here you can write your volume logic. That is secondary, you know how to write it. See, only thing what we are doing is, instead of doing the initialization with methods, means there are three ways to initialize you have learned. Which are there? Hard coding, dot operator, methods. So a you can use all the three ways to initialize, but preferably preference is given more to constructor to initialize. So constructor will be used for initialization and methods will be used for writing some logics. That's the difference between constructor and method. So I'll be covering difference between constructor and method later. Right now I can't cover the difference. Reason is our prime focus is constructor. We'll complete fully the constructor, and once constructor is over, then I'll be covering to comparing the difference between method and constructor. Till then we can't compare because we right now know what a method is. Till we complete what a constructor is, we cannot compare the difference between constructor and method. But one thing I can say, constructor is executed only once. Methods will be executed a number of times. Constructor is executed only during the creation of object. Methods are executed after creation of the object. Constructor gets executed with the help of new keyword. This is getting executed with the help of dot operator. So that is how they have designed all this. But coming from usage point of view, this is used for initialization logic. We say initialization logic. Used for writing initialization logic. Initialization logic is nothing but what? Initializing instance variables. Okay. These methods are used for writing business logic. So that is the thing which you will not understand now. What is initialization logic? What is business logic? You will not understand now. Slowly you will understand it later. Okay. So then I will write return L. This is how you are writing your class now. So you are learning how to write the members of the class, and this concept is true in all object-oriented languages. Even in C++, same story will come up. Some other language you go to learn, it's the same concept. So in all object-oriented languages, this is the same concept. Somewhere you have to put effort and learn this. Understood? Somewhere you have to put effort and learn this. And once you complete learning this, you go to C++ also, the story will be same. There is no difference. Clear? So fine. Once this is done, let's see how to use this now. Class demo public static void main. What will I do now? Say box B1. What am I doing? I am declaring a variable. Still object has not been created. If you want to create the object, we'll say B1 is equal to new box 1, 2, 3. So now, when the memory gets allocated, see this is the JVM. In this JVM what will have? You'll have a new memory. WHND will be there. You'll have a constructor. Means as is your class, same way code comes into existence. There's no doubt about it. How you have written your class, same way code comes into existence. See, remember this. Creating an object is nothing but bringing code into existence. So you have written your class like this now. This code also will be there. Okay. So int L is equal to W into H into D. Return L. So this is B1. Address is 150. So new will allocate memory. In this memory what happens now? Constructor gets executed. That constructor gets executed. Values 1, 2, 3 are passed as arguments to XYZ. From XYZ it is given to W, H and D. So as soon as the object is created, immediately the values are ready. So if you use the constructor, what happens? What is the advantage of using a constructor? As soon as you create the object, values are ready inside your object. It is ready for usage. That is one advantage. At the same time, what is one more advantage? Every object also can have different values. One is object will have the values, and second thing is every object can have your desired values. Understood? So this is the advantage. So now see this, after creation of the object, you can use the object directly. I can use value of W in box B1 is plus B1 dot W. Similarly, you can print what? B1 dot H plus B1 dot D. All the values you print. SOP, SOP. Getting it now? Statements you print now. So it will print what? 1, 2, 3. You getting the statement now? Value of H in box B1 is plus so and so. Same way value of D in box B1 is. So object is ready for usage now. 1, 2, 3. Next, if you want, you can write. I will declare one local variable here. Int Z. Z is equal to B1 dot volume. And you can print SOP volume of box B1 is plus Z. So now once the object is ready, how many members are there? 3 instance variables, 1 constructor, 1 method is there. Okay, 3 instance variables, 1 constructor, 1 method is there. So after the object is created, look what all I am accessing. Focus that also. I am accessing the members. Which member I am accessing? W, H and D. Yes, I can access. Volume I am accessing. Yes, I can access. Any member you can access. If you want to print again, SOP B1 dot W. Means your members can be accessed anytime, whenever you want. It's not means you can access like this, or you can modify the value. B1 dot W is equal to 5, B1 dot H is equal to 6, B1 dot D is equal to 7. Actually you should not modify, because what will happen, it will overwrite the value. But what I am trying to tell you is, after creating the object, you can access your members with the help of dot operator. Okay, so I can access it with this dot operator. Also I can access the volume method also, but I can never access the constructor with what? Dot operator. This is possible. All these are possible. Means you access and print or you modify, that is secondary. But I am talking about access. So always members are accessed after creation of the object. Okay. But if I want to access the which one? Constructor, it is not possible. They will not allow you. It gives you error. Compilation error only it will give. It will never compile only. So the constructor cannot be called with the dot operator. Why? They have deliberately designed it. They do not want the constructor to be executed again. Why? Because if you call it, it overwrites the value now. Say they do not want the values to be modified in an object. Once you store the value in an object, now it should not be modified. That is their idea. Okay. And as you might ask, have a question. I'll modify like this. I'll modify, if I cannot modify it with the help of constructor, I can modify it with the help of what? Dot operator or something I'll modify. We'll restrict it. That also will be restricted. Do not worry. Okay. But definitely with the help of constructor you can't modify. This modification will be stopped. Right now this is allowed now. This will also be stopped. Okay. But the values in the object should never be modified. Once you store the values, never modify the values, but use it. And how do you use it? See, I can use it by calling the methods. You call the methods 100 times. Yes, you can go on using the value stored in the object. This is calculating the volume now, but technically if you see what it is doing, that method is using the value stored in the object. W into H into D. So once you store the values in an object, you can go on using the value, processing the value, but you should not manipulate the value. This is the idea. Understood? So methods always contain what? Business logic. Business logic means some logic you'll be writing which you can use n number of times. So remember this, methods are always executed n number of times. Constructor is executed only once in an object. How many times I am calling the method? You can see here I am calling, here I am calling, here I am calling, here I am calling, 4 times in the same object. It definitely gets executed. There is no doubt about it. But in this object, constructor is executed only once. And they have designed it correctly. It is not confusing. Perfectly they have designed it. Understood? They are not doing this for the, if they had allowed this to execution happen multiple times with the help of dot operator, that time it would have been more confusing. Then you would have asked, why did they give the constructor? They could have given a method only. But now it's so clear. Understood? Why did they design a constructor? They could have used a normal method only, you would have asked. Because after creation of the object, If you are able to call it with a dot operator, normal method is having the same functionality. So it would have been more confusing. Are you clear with this? Okay. So one object has been created. And okay, then next. So object is here used for what? Initializing the instance variables, or it is also used for initializing what? The state of the object. What do you mean by state of the object? What is the state of this object? 1, 2, 3. The state of this object is 1, 2, 3, and the state is stored in the variables called as W, H and D. The 1 state is stored in W, the 2 state is stored in H, the 3 state is stored in D, as simple as this. Are you clear with all these lines now? Are you clear? Okay. Now if I want, I can create one more object. Yes or no? Leave this. Assuming that I am continuing the code here. Box B2, is an object getting created here? No. Box B2 is only declaring a variable. So if I say B2 is equal to new box of 5, 6, 7, what happens? New. One more new memory is allocated. Yes or no? One more new memory is allocated. So W, H, D. Same way memory is allocated. You don't have to bother anything. 1 inch also you don't bother. Blindly you can predict what is there in the class. Same memory comes into existence. This address might be 250 and new. See, new memory is allocated. After allocation of this memory, in this memory what happens? The constructor gets executed. Where? Not in this memory. The constructor is executed in this memory now. Understood? So in every new object you create, constructor is guaranteed to get executed. So here it will execute. What are the values? 5, 6, 7. They are passed to what? XYZ. From XYZ it is given to what? W, H and D. So in this object values are stored. Once I store the value, I can use the value, but I am not supposed to manipulate the value. Means again I cannot call the constructor and pass something like 11, 12, 13. This is wrong. But definitely I can use the value. How will I use the value? B2 dot volume, or I can even access B2 dot W, B2 dot H, B2 dot D. Don't manipulate. Okay. See, manipulation of the value is never possible with the constructor. Manipulation of value is never possible with the constructor. It is never possible. They will not allow you. If at all you can modify it with the help of dot operator, B2 dot W and all that, you can modify it. That also will be restricted very shortly. But it is never possible to modify the value in an object with the help of constructor. Done? So B2 dot volume. All this is okay. But now you have created one more object. Again, if you want, you can create one more object. Sorry, I will just expand the memory. So this is JVM now. Again, if you say box B3, B3 is equal to new box of something like 10, 20, 30. Again, new memory will be allocated. In this memory, now in this memory also again what happens? Constructor gets executed and the values will be stored here. So what is, 10, 20, 30 I wrote, told. So this is the code. Box B3, B3 is equal to new box. If you tell like this, 10, 20, 30. If you tell like this, again new memory. Again in this new memory what happens? This will be something like 350 or something. New memory, constructor will get executed, values will be supplied and those values will be given to WHND. So the state of B1 is 1, 2, 3, the state of B2 is 5, 6, 7, the state of B3 is 10, 20, 30. So constructor is used for initializing the state of the object or initializing the instance variables. Are you getting it clear? And in all these objects, constructor was executed only once. In B1 object, constructor was executed how many times? Once. B2 object, how many times it was executed? Once. B3 object, how many times? Once. So in one object, the constructor is executed only once. Okay. So we take that advantage because constructor is executed only once. No, you know what is taking advantage? We take the help of it. We take the help of it only to initialize. The constructor's advantage, we take it for what? Initialization purpose. Understood? We are taking the advantage of it. Because it's executed only once, we take the advantage and do the initialization with the help of constructor. Understood? This is how they have designed the constructor. Are you clear with this? And if you do not, see till now, one more thing. Till now, how are you creating the objects? You are not writing constructor now? You are not writing constructor. I am just revising last class. Till now you are creating objects by calling, means writing the code in this line. Now this will not work. This will not work. Why it will not work? Because you have written a constructor. So if you write a constructor, what happens? This line will not work. And when will this line work? Don't write a constructor. Or we'll see, by writing a constructor also you can make it executed. We'll see what to do today. Okay. Anyway, see till now, if you are doing that, it was, see till now what was happening was, we'll see the code. Till now you are not writing this constructor, yes or no? And you are creating objects like that. You are not writing this part of the code. WHND you are writing, volume you are writing, fun method you are writing, that's secondary. But this is what? A source file, na? This is source file. When you compile this, what happens? This is Java file. See, this is Java file. Now this is class file. In the class file, what happens? Dot class file. So this is how your dot class file will be now. In WHND will be there. If you do not write a constructor, one default constructor will be added like this. Last class I showed you. I decompiled and showed. How do you compile? By using Java C command. You do the compilation always by using Java C. Okay, Java C will compile high level code to low level code, that's byte code. Okay, it will convert it into byte code. Now to decompile, GavaJ is not a command, it is on third party software, and they are given the name as KavaJ. You can see what a good name they are given. They have named it Ulta. They have just given a name. Don't think. There are many decompilers available in the market. One of the extensively used decompiler is KavaJ. It is user friendly. Right click open means it will open up. There are many others. So you have got some commands also. You can use that also. Do not bother about that. Okay. Just I am showing you use a decompiler. What I am trying to say is use any decompiler, Java decompiler. So when you use any Java decompiler, you can decompile and see this. In this dot class, you will be having what? 3 instance variables, one default, that same default constructor will be there, and you will have this volume. So finally, when you execute, which code is getting executed? Source file or dot class file? Dot class file. So actually, when you write that line, actually it was this constructor which was getting executed. So in every object, a constructor is guaranteed to execute. Or in other way around, every class has a constructor. It should have. We wrote beginning 2 points. Every class has a constructor. Either you write. If you don't write, it will add it. That way also you can see. Okay, every class has a constructor. You write. If you are not writing, it will add it. Who will add? Compiler. When? During compilation. That is one way. Next, to create object, what should get executed now? The first 2 points we are seeing now. At beginning of the class we wrote 2 points now, that point you are seeing. For every object to be created, constructor has to get executed. So if you do not write a constructor, this one gets executed. This is called as a default constructor. If you write a constructor, you have to call it. Okay, if you write a constructor in a class, default constructor is not going to be added. So when you compile, compiler checks. When you compile, no, compiler checks, is there any constructor in your class? If the constructor is present in your class, it will not add the default constructor. Understood? It will not add the default constructor. Okay, default constructor is a no argument constructor, we say generally. Default constructor is a, generally we say no argument constructor. No argument constructor means what? It cannot accept any arguments. Default constructor cannot accept any arguments. So we have to call the constructor without sending any arguments only. Parameters and arguments should match. Now how will you invoke? Understood? So this is the way they have designed it. If you want, you can write. Now why do you write the constructor? You know now. As soon as the memory is allocated, I want to send the values. At the same time, I want to do the initialization. That's why we write our argumented constructor. Nobody will use the default constructor. Definitely will be using argumented constructor. Clear? So then, next one more point I told you. If you write a, supposing I write a constructor now, assume that I have written a constructor. Supposing I write, okay, but if I give a return type now, this is by compiler does not treat this as what? Constructor. Compiler treats this as a normal method. If you write a return type for your constructor, compiler treats this as a method. Again it will add what? Default constructor. This also will be there. This code plus default constructor means it will be having this void box. I'm just writing it in some order here, but this will be there. I showed you yesterday last class. Int x, int y, int z, all this will be there. Plus it will be having this one now. And when you're creating the object, you can call only the default constructor, but not this one now. Okay, so writing a return type for a constructor, it turns out to be a method. Compiler compiles. No doubt, it will not give you any error. This is not treated as a syntax error. This is not treated as a syntax error. So it will compile. Okay, so once it compiles, what they'll do? They'll add the default constructor. And again, you have to create the object like that. And how will you call this one now? With the help of dot operator. Because it's a method, you have to invoke it with the help of dot operator. That's the only way you can invoke. But do not write a method with the same name as class name, because if you write it, people will think what it is, they will not understand. Whether it will execute one time, a number of times, what is the code you have written, they will start getting confused. So do not write a return type for it, not even void. Clear? These were the points what we covered in the last class. Yes, what's your question?
Sir, if we try to print the values of WH and D without initializing, so what values without default values of WH and D?
When?
If we don't write any constructor.
What should I say for this? His question is, I'll not write the constructor. Okay, I'll create the object of box. In that object, what will be the default value of WHLD? What is the answer? Tell him.
My question is, will that default constructor assign the value of 0 to that?
It is assigning default value of 0 only to.
That is the work of the default constructor.
Default constructor initializes the default values to the instance variables. Default constructor initializes default values to the default values. If you don't write a constructor, the default constructor will be giving default values to the constructor. To the instance variables. Are you clear with this? Any questions still here? We'll proceed ahead. Okay. Now next point is constructors can be overloaded also. Constructors can be overloaded also. That's the next point what we have to see now. Okay. So I'll clear everything now. So let's start seeing now how to write good code. See, your class keeps growing like this. So you should know how many variables to have. So that means what? How many variables to have will depend on the number of values you want to store. Yes or no? How many variables you'll have depends on how many variables you'll have in a class depends on the number of values you want to store. Similarly, you can have your number of constructors also. Again, you can have any number of methods also. So like this, we design it logically. Simply don't take it as a burden. Why should I overload constructor? Why should I do this? That is not the way to understand. Every point you have to go on understanding it technically here. Why they are supporting it, why they are supporting it. You should not learn it in a by-hearted way. Constructors can be overloaded. Finished. We'll see it. Why they are allowing you overloading, that we'll start seeing. See, learn to work with objects very clearly. That's why I'm showing you all the errors when you work with the object. Why I'm showing you all the errors to work with the object is so that you can design your class properly. If you don't get errors with objects, you can't write what? Classes properly. So work with object more. See the address. Try to access members, non-members. Try to do all that. Once you find the errors, then you'll know how to design your class. So see this. This is one constructor now. Same thing what we had written earlier, that I'll write. Last class I programmed and showed you all these topics. Okay. So W is equal to X. Now we will see the new topic. Overloading of what? Constructors. See, sometimes the scenario might be like this. Like I want to give unknown value to WH and D. Understood? In another case, you might have a value like this. I'll give only one value. Let all the variables have the same value. Like you want to construct a cube. Here it is a cuboid, no? You know the difference between cube and cuboid, no? Cube will have what? Same sides. Cuboid will have different values. So, okay. So here I want to create one box with 3 different dimensions. Okay, WH and D. But I want to create one more box with the same. So that is when, if you allow the user to call this, he can send any type of a value. For W means for X he'll send some value, Y will send one value, for Z he'll send one value. But I want to give the option to the user. Okay, like if you want you can call this constructor, or if you want you can call another constructor. And that constructor we'll see now. But you got the requirement now. We want to create a cube now. I have only one parameter. See this now. And now the same value will be given to what? W is equal to X, H is equal to X, D is equal to X. Over now. So here the necessity for what comes, sir? Overloading. Okay, you can have your volume method. One second, I need space. What I have written is correct. Okay, just I'll clear it and write again. Because I need space. I'll be adding more constructors. This is one constructor, this is the second constructor now. Yeah, so first I'll write one, then I'll add more constructors. Or I'll keep space here, again I'll add it. You can write a volume method. I'll fill two more constructors. First I'll finish explanation of this, then I'll fill two more constructors. So are you clear with this? So right now, your class is having how many members? Right now your class is how many members? 3 instance variables, 2 constructors, 1 method. Carefully observe. And this space I left it deliberately because I want to add 2 more constructors. That I'll show you later. So 3 instance variables, 2 constructors and 1 method. So totally there are 5 members. No, 5? 6. 3 variables, 2 constructors, 1 method. Understood? Let's see how to work with the class now. So to work with the class, what you will do now? Again, you can say box, declare the variable, box B1. You are declaring the variable. Then what will you say? B1 is equal to new box of, see how wish, new, you are allocating memory. In that memory, which constructor you want to execute? You are having 2 options, either the first constructor or second constructor. Decide now itself. After the object is created, later on you can't call the constructor in that object. Understood? So first I'll execute the first constructor. So it's a new box of 1, 2, 3. So what happens in the JVM now? See, this is your JVM now. So in this JVM, you'll have the memory getting allocated. So it will be like W, H and D, int X, int Y, int Z. See how you have written your class. Same way the code comes into existence. There's no doubt about it. You do not have to have questions on that. Okay, what you have written in the class only, same way code will come into existence. This is one constructor. This is one more constructor. This is the code you have written now. Then you'll have the volume method also. Now don't bother about space, so space is not there. Here there is space now. Don't think that space is not there. Okay. It will not allocate, means it is the same as your class. These members will be allocated now. Address is 150, that address is given to B1 now. Valid now. Okay, first we'll come back. Box B1, variable has been declared, new. Memory gets allocated like this. In this memory, what happens? Box, the constructor is called. Which one will be called? You have options. Either this one you can call or you can call this one. So what happens now? It will call the first constructor. Matching one, arguments and parameters. Okay, so 1 is passed to X, 2 is passed to Y, 3 is passed to Z, and now it will initialize 1, 2, 3. So finished. The object has been created. It is ready for usage. Now you can't modify values here. I can use only the values. I cannot modify. I can call b1.w, means I can access, but don't try to modify it. I can access b1.w. You can try and print. See this. SOP. See, I'm accessing all the members. Value of w in box b1 is plus b1.w. I can access. Don't think I'm printing. Printing, you know how to print. You are not joined cluster for what? Printing values. Yes or no? So learn to access the members here. You join cluster for learning concepts. These are the concepts you have to understand. Understood? Printing you have done too much in college. SOP. Understood? So this is how you do it. So what happens now? It will print the values. So as soon as the object is created, values are ready for use in that object. And if I want, I can call, okay, I'll write one more variable. Int Z. Z is equal to b1 dot volume. I have declared it. I can just directly use it. So I'll print SOP volume of box b1 is plus Z. See, in this object, what did I access? Notice WHND I accessed, volume I accessed, constructor also I accessed. But these 3 variables I accessed with dot operator, volume I accessed with dot operator, constructor with new operator. Done? I have accessed. But after creation of the object, difference is this was executed, means constructor was accessed during creation of object. All these were accessed after creation of object. All this we see. Can I access b1.w here? This line? No. So WH and D were accessed after new. Notice. So WH and D and all can be accessed after creation of object. Volume also can be accessed after creation of object. But constructor is accessed during creation of object. Getting the difference now? And after creation of the object, you can access these members any number of time. Constructor no. Try to call now. B1 dot box of 10 error. That one also you cannot call. Which one you called earlier? This one no. That also you call. Not allowed. Constructor can never be called with the help of dot operator. This is error. Deliberately do it. You have to write it and see, because these kind of mistakes should not happen later. Understood? These are very grave errors. Okay, which should never happen in the future course of programming. And you should not go and check for what? Semicolon for all these errors. Are you clear with this? Okay, done. Next, if you want, you can write box B2. B2 is equal to, again see, new. You can create one more object. If you are having a class, you can go on allocating memory as many times. So I'll say box. You have to call the constructor. Now which constructor you want to call, you decide. That is your take. Are you clear with this? So now either I can call the first one or second one. In the means new. New what it will do? Again it is allocating one more new memory. Do not forget this. First new means it will allocate new memory. In this memory what happens? Again you will have WHND. Again you will have what? These two constructors. See what is there in your class? Same way the code comes into existence. Valid. It is perfect. And in this memory what happens? You have the option. New means it will allocate. Okay. In this memory what value you want to give now? You decide. Okay. But which to give the value, which constructor will you call? That also you see. So I will call which one? If you want, I can call the first one again, or I can call the second one. But I will call the second one. So now what happens? Which one gets executed? In this new memory, this one is not executed. This one gets executed. Value of 5 is given to x. Now what are we doing? The same value we are trying to give it to WHND. And values will be initialized to 5, 5, 5. This is B2. So new allocates memory, the constructor gets executed. The address of that memory is assigned to what? B2. Like this it goes on. And now B2.W is what? 5. B2.H is what? 5. B2.D is what? 5. Means object is ready for usage. Okay, and again we are accessing the members with the help of what? Value of W in box B2 is plus B2.W. You can print now. It prints what? 5. Similarly you can print what? Say I'll write shortcut now. P2.H 5. Print statements you add. B2.D. What it will print? 5. Volume also you can call. Z is equal to B2.volume. And it will have Z. Z you can print. Volume of box B2 is plus Z. Finished. You can print now. Again if you want box B3. B3 is equal to new box. Which one you want? Create. Understood? Like that you can overload the constructors. There will be need. So you will need many mechanisms to initialize the instance variables. So if you want different mechanism to initialize your instance variable, depending on the scenario, they are giving you a mechanism to overload constructors also. Okay, one more scenario will take. I want two sides different, but one side should be fixed. Understood? One side should be fixed. Depth should be fixed. Width and height can vary. I want to create one more box object. You are getting the scenario, no? Depth should be same. Okay, but width and height should keep on changing. It can depend. So that is when I can overload one more constructor. Like this you can go on writing many constructors. See the third constructor now. Int x, int y, int z. Sorry, I'll get only two values. Okay, so then what will I do here? W is equal to x, h is equal to y, d is equal to 10. Valid now. Depth is fixed, 10. Width and height will vary now. That's up to you now. So if you are interested in that, you can call that now. New what it will do now? Everything will come into existence. Supposingly if I say box B1, B1 is equal to new box of 1, 2, 3. What happens? I'll use the same diagram. It's a different program. Okay, I modified. What did I do? In the new program, I have added one constructor, very small change. So this time what happens? You will have one more constructor like this. W is equal to x, h is equal to y, d is equal to 10. I wanted the same value everywhere. Depth to be same in all the objects. Fine. Now see this. B1 is equal to new box. So among the three constructors, which one gets executed? First one, no. Second one, no. Third one executes. Sorry. In this scenario, first one only gets executed. But memory got allocated for what? Everything. So how many members are there in your object now? 3 instance variables, 3 constructors, and 1 volume method. Right now there are 3 instance variables, 3 constructors, and 1 volume method. But among that, the first constructor gets executed in this scenario. Clear this? Next we'll take this one. B2 is equal to new box of 5. So that time what happens? Here also same story. Here also full memory is allocated. But among all the memory, which constructor gets executed? The one with single parameter, because you are sending one argument, the second one. So it gets executed. Are you clear? If I want, I can say box B3 now. Where I'll write the code? Okay, I'll write it here. The code continues, assume here, box B3. From here I'll continue here, because I'm not having space. Box B3. B3 is equal to new box of 11 and 12. What will happen now? New. Just I'll increase the size here. So in the JVM what happens? Again one more new memory gets allocated. You will have WHND. So box. Again X, Y, Z. I'll write it off in short now. W is equal to X. H is equal to Y. D is equal to Z. Box. X. Means int X. That is what you understand. Same memory is allocated, man. That's it. X, Y. So W is equal to X, H is equal to Y, D is equal to 10. So in this memory, which one gets executed now? For this, the third one. And the values are given, 11 and 12 is given, and D will be initialized to what? 10. So means, because if you don't hard code the value here now, what happens? 10 will have, D will be having what value? If you don't give the value of 10 to D, it will have 0. So that's the reason what I am doing. Giving the value, but hard coding, that's it. 10. That's your wish. So now when you are creating the object, you decide which constructor you want to call. There are 3, whichever one you want to call. Understood? But observe that in every object the constructor is executed during creation. That is one thing. And notice, even though you are having 3 constructors, notice carefully, only one constructor is getting executed now. In B1, how many constructors, even though there are 3, how many constructors got executed during creation? Only 1. B2 also there are 3 constructors, but how many got executed during creation? 1. B3 also there is 3, but executed only 1. So, you should take full measures. You should be very careful with this. When you are writing code inside your constructor now, you should take full measures to initialize all the instance variables. If you don't initialize it, it will get what? Default values. So one constructor, when it is getting executed, it will take full measures to initialize all the instance variables. By chance, if you forget one also, it will take the default value, and that becomes a waste object, useless object. Means the values will be having default values. And if you try to use the default value for your business logic, you will not get the accurate answer. If I call volume, what will happen now? Right now it's volume, but it will be some business logic. And your business logic will not be getting the right answer. So due to that, what we do, means we should take full measures to initialize all the instance variables in all the constructors. See, here also I am taking full measure to initialize all the variables, instance variables. Here also I am taking full measures to initialize all the instance variables. Here also I am taking full measures to initialize all the instance variables. If I don't do any one, it will get the default value. Are you clear with this? Now, example. Now see this. Till now you have written code like this. Box B. B is equal to new box. Now I want to create an object in this way only. That is my requirement now. That time what will you do? I want to create an object in that way only. That time if you want that code only to execute, what will you do? Remove all the constructors, huh? You should know when to remove, when to add now. What do you do? Better you add one construct, default construct. Like this you add now. But default values of WHND will be what now? 0, 0. The default constructor will always give default values to your instance variables. 0, 0, 0. If it is double, it will be giving what? 0.0. So that's how it works. The default constructor always gives default values to your constructor. So what you can do, see here it becomes hard coded. If I give any value here, if you give if you call this constructor in that object, it will be having these values. If you don't give, 0, 0, 0. So I'll give the value as 11, 12, D is 13. Any value you want you give. That is your wish, man. I'm not telling you this only. W is equal to 11, H is equal to 12, D is equal to 13. So there are 4 constructors now. Call whichever one you want to call. But if you call the default constructor in that object, value of W, H and D will be 11, 12, 13. If you don't write that code, it will be having 0, 0, 0. But we can't send values to that constructor. If you want to send values to that constructor, you have to choose other 3. Otherwise, it will for this constructor, which one? Fourth constructor, you can't send values. So if you create an object by calling fourth constructor, in that object values will be having 11, 12, 13. So this is the fourth. So like this, you decide. I'm not telling you should have only 1 constructor, 2 constructor. I'm talking about all the possible ways you can write constructors in your class. Means constructors can be overloaded. Topic is constructors can be overloaded. I'm telling you technically why they are supporting it. Simply they are supporting overloading means you should not buy it. See, constructor support overloading, all of you know theoretically. But why they are supporting practically, you should know. Because if you know it practically, then you can write a good class. So like this, your class keeps growing. We write 3 instances, means you can write any number of variables, you can write any number of constructors, you can write any number of methods. Okay, so that will be purely a logical construct. Okay, so within 3-4 days now, you'll be very good in writing a class. Till then you have to have little patience. Because a huge data type. Okay, for learning structures in C, how to write a struct and how to work with it, you take minimum of what? 15 to 20 days. Because concept of pointer all will come. Here also you have to give around 15 days to understand how to design the class data type. Understood? So once you understand how to design class data types, slowly you can understand what? Other data types also. So overloading of constructors clear, and you can write it in any order. I'm telling you. See, WH and you can write it in the last. Volume method you can write it in the first. While writing source code, no, you can write it in any way. But this is the convention what we follow. What is the convention we follow? Variables on the top, next constructors, then methods. Because see, finally how you write the code doesn't matter. In memory, things are stored in different way. Variable will be kept in on memory location, constructor will be kept in on memory location, methods will be kept in another location. That I'll be telling you later. But when you write the code, you can write it in any order. But the convention what we follow, convention means what? The best practice what we follow is this one. First write variables, then constructors, then method. Okay, and see again simple words. The methods and blocks, the methods and constructors contain statements. Simple words. What do they contain? Initialization logic, business logic, all okay. But finally, if you see from the simple point of view, they are nothing but statements. Okay, so the statements written inside a constructor is executed only once. The statement written inside a method can be called n number of times. That's it. Okay, and one more common mistake what you do is when you are writing a class, what you do? Just I'll remove this constructor, fourth one. If this is the method, volume method, if you want to write any statement, if, else, do, while, these are all statements, they are control statements. SOP is a statement, if else is a statement. Any statement you want to write, you will be writing it inside the constructor or method. This is one more common mistake what you do. Okay, what you do is, if you want to write now some code, if else and all that, you'll write it here inside the class. This is wrong. Statements are not allowed inside a class. This is one more syntax error. Compiler checks for this. It will not give you error. So do not write statements inside a class. If at all you want to write any statements, write it in constructor or method. Today I show you this error. Okay, because if I write a statement here, assuming that, how will you call it there? You only think. How, after creating the object, how will you call? b1.if you will call box b1 is equal to new box b1.if b1.else. Can I call like that? It's not possible. Supposingly I write, see, this is all not possible now. You can't write statements like this. If, else, SOP, hello, SOP world. These are all wrong syntaxes. You can't write. Now how will you call hello? If you write a statement b1.sop hello, you will call. So these are your errors. Very common errors what you do is, you start writing statements inside a class and then you look for what? Semicolon. These are wrong. So if at all you want all this, you can write it inside one M1 method. Understood? If you want very clearly, I'll write it here. See, if something I is equal to some statement I want to write. If I is equal to 10, SOP, okay, or if W is greater than, here it, okay, W is greater than 5, SOP, with this more, else SOP with this less, something like that I am writing on statement menu. Okay, so this statement will not execute. And one more, SOP hello, SOP world, SOP welcome. If you write the things like this, and if you try to call, this, how will you call now? Box B1, B1 is equal to new box. Technically, how will you execute this code? So writing statements inside a class is error. Whatever statements you want to write it in a member, any member, either method or construct, it's optional. If you write it in constructor, you know what happens now. This will be executed only once. Whether it is having parameters and all, that is secondary. Okay, but if you write it in a constructor, it is executed only once. But if you write it in a method, I can call it 1000 times. 1000 what? Any number of times you can call. So when you write a class, keep all these things in mind. You should know how to write variables, you should know how to write constructors, you should know how to write methods. Okay, what happens if you write the code in a constructor? What happens if you write the code in a method? All this you should be very careful. And based on that, you should go on writing your code. Clear this? Do you have any questions? Ask. Else I'll type and show you overloading of constructors, and we'll finish it off. Yeah, any questions? Yeah? Clear this? Are you clear now? If you write statements, how will you call it? Box B1. B1 is equal to new box. I'll create object. B1.if I can call. If you call B1.if, only if will execute. What about else? So means that's why we give identifiers. You understanding why we give identifiers? Names. Which code you want to execute? That's why we give the name. If I write this code in M1 method can be called. All the statements inside M1 gets executed. If I write a constructor, that's also a name. So when you call the constructor with the name, all the code inside that gets executed. So that's what we do. If you want to execute group of statements, okay, we put it inside one method or constructor and we give a name to it. That's another way of viewing it. And you can call it. If you are written in constructor, you know no. Statements are executed only once. If you are written it in a method, n number of times. As simple as this. Any questions?
I have a doubt on default constructor.
Default, yeah.
So sir, suppose if our class don't have any variables, we have only methods. If we instantiate an object, still our default constructor will be called.
Every class, his question is, I am not having any instance variables in my class. Okay, so now will there be a default constructor? I had made one statement very clear at the beginning of the class. Whether your class is having instance variable or not, that I did not tell. I told you on statement very clearly. What I told, every class has a constructor in Java. Whether you have or not is your wish. Okay, so if your class has instance variables, then we write our constructors. If your class does not have a variable, then we can use default constructor. Okay, that decision you will get it very slowly. Okay, so but if you have a variable or if you don't have a variable, instance variables I am talking. Okay, if you have an instance variable or you don't have an instance variable, definitely there will be a default constructor. Or if you don't see it from that point of view, you see it like this, it becomes very simple. Every class in Java has a constructor, that's it. And object can never be created without the execution of constructor. Understood? Object can never be created. You have to call it. You see the code here. Whatever you are doing, you are calling the constructor. You are calling it. So it has to be present. So there is no question of creating an object without the execution of constructor. There is no question. Clear? Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir. See, many questions like this will get, I'm not saying no. And slowly they'll be cleared because we are learning how to still write on simple class. Later on we will do many things inside a class. We'll write many classes, not one. Here we are learning how to write a single class, which one? Box. Later on we start writing many classes. That time you will only get the idea. What to write, what not to write, how to write. You can understand. You will also understand when I write also, you will also understand. Like that it will become. Okay. So first we are studying one simple class. And what is the, okay, first I'll type and show all this and then we'll continue. See, Java is making it very clear. Okay. Right now you don't know the difference between local and instance variable. That also I'll be covering. Java says whenever memory gets allocated for a variable, okay, it should be either having some value or it should be having default values. That's what it says. So when you create an object, let's focus only on instance variables. Let's not talk about local variable. Whenever an object is created, in that memory, okay, it is guaranteed that at least it will have some default value or it will have your desired value. Understood? Instance variables I am talking. As soon as the object is created in that memory, either you'll have default value or you'll have desired. Whatever value you want, you can have it. Okay. But this is not true in other languages. You can't predict. There'll be junk values. And you'll start getting some junk answer. And you'll not understand what is the output. Understood? I don't know about C++, but you can try it out. You have one similar class like this. You can have WHND without initializing call the volume. It might print some answer. But really you are not knowing whether it is a correct result or a junk value. Here in Java we can predict. If I don't initialize and call volume, what is the result? 0, no? Now it is very clear. Okay, I have not initialized. But in some other languages what it will print? Some value like 59789. It will print. What do you understand now? Whether it's a junk value or what? This is the problem in other languages. So Java sees to that your instance variables will either be initialized with default values or with your own desired values. I'll copy paste this code. Okay, because last class I typed and showed you this, or I'll continue here only. Okay, I'll take another file because I might need it. Because we might need, don't modify your code. Box constructor overload demo. Simple. Okay. Writing return type and all I have shown you now. If you write return type, what happens? It is treated as method, all that I have shown to you. Directly I will go with overloading. Huh? Okay. So now see this. You can write it in any order, man. Don't think that I would write 3 first only. Means a constructor with 3 parameters in the first. You can write it in any order. See, this one I explained to you. I want, if you want to create object with one side fixed and WHND varying, you can do like this, or you can go with what? This will create a cube or a box with same dimension on all sides. Similarly, you can have volume method, that's optional. So how many members are there? 3 instance variables, 3 constructors and 1 method. And now when you are creating the object, you decide which one you want to create. It's as simple as that. I'll create, say, box B1. B1 is equal to new box of 1, 2, 3. So you are calling which constructor? First one. Now new memory is allocated, the first constructor will be invoked. Box B2. B2 is equal to new box of 5. Which one will be called now? Third one. Or the one with single parameter. No first, second, third. You can think argument and parameter matching. As simple as this one, and you can calculate the volume. In WHND is 1, 2, 3, volume is 6. In B2 the value is 555, volume is 125. Very simple. Done now? This code I have shown you last class. And if I try to call the default constructor like this, error now? Compilation error. Why default this one now? Constructor is not added. Why it is not added? Because we have written a constructor. Let's see the, if you want you can see the bytecode. You go to D drive, go to the file man. Box start class, you can decompile. Open with Kava J. You can see there is no default constructor. Yeah? So you can see this. This is one of the third party software. And they have named it as Kava J. They have given a name like that. It's a good name what they have given. Java C they reversed it. Kava J. Understood? Are you clear? You can use any debugging tool, but we are giving it in DVD. You can use this. So then, if you want this code to execute, what should I do now? Add one more constructor. But if you add like this, what happens? Default values will be what? 0, 0, 0. If you want, I'll execute now. See this. It gets executed now. So it's now see 0, 0, 0. But it's not printing me junk value now. In C++ or some other language, I'm not telling C++, what happens? It will print you some value. Now you will not really know whether you have stored a value or it's a junk value. Problems will start off there. These are the problems with some other languages. Are you following? So Java is trying to eliminate all these problems for you. Either it will store default value or it will give your desired value. Yeah, with instance variables. Okay, are you clear with this? Any other questions you are having here? Constructors can be overloaded. That was the topic, I completed it. Okay. And some points we are discussing. See, constructor is a special method which has the same name as class name. Is this point clear to you? It does not have a return type, even void also. Yes or no? Okay. It is a member of a class. Yes. The next point. They are specially designed to initialize what? Instance variable or state of the object. Both mean same. Now we'll try to understand this point. Constructor is used to initialize object level resources. This is very crucial. Okay, slowly you'll understand. Till now you are using it for initializing instance variables, but later on we actually use this for initializing some powerful resources. Okay, I'll explain you that. You will not get the full idea, but just I'll give you the idea. Constructor is used for initializing what? Object level resources. I'll come back to this point. Let me complete off other things. Okay, we'll hold this point back. I'll come back and explain to you. So constructor is always executed only once during the creation of every new object. An object can never be created without invoking a constructor. Constructor can be invoked only with the help of new keyword. Constructor can never be accessed with the help of dot operator, or it can never be invoked by an object. Both mean same. By an object you cannot call it b1 dot. Understood? Next, constructor can never be invoked after creation of an object. And there one side I am telling dot operator, other side I am saying after creation of an object. Now if you write a return type for a constructor, then it is treated as a normal method and it can be accessed with the help of dot operator and not with new operator. Next point, if you have not written a constructor in a class, a default constructor with no arguments is added into the dot class file by the compiler during the compilation time. If you don't write, it's added. If you write any constructor in a class, then compiler will not add any default constructor. Okay. Now constructors can be overloaded. Constructor overloading is a technique in Java in which a class can have any number of constructors that differ in parameter lists. That's constructor overloading. It is guaranteed when you make a new object, at least one constructor is executed. Among the overloaded constructors, one will execute. Which one? You decide. Yeah? Then constructors can have var args. Don't bother about this example now. I'll show you later. Constructor can also have what? Var args. Okay. Now constructors can have access specifiers. These points are not covered. You'll be seeing it later. Okay. Constructors can have what? Access specifiers. Private, protected, public, anything like that. Then constructors cannot have modifiers. Okay, we'll see this because I have not still taught you these keywords. Abstract, final, static, you cannot. Okay, see, and last point now. Constructors can be overloaded, but they cannot be overridden. And overriding I have not taught you. We'll be seeing it later. But remember this point. Constructors cannot be overridden. They can be overloaded. Methods, both you can do. Overloading also possible, overriding also possible for methods. But for constructors only, overloading. And definitely a question is what is overriding, we'll see it later. But we'll discuss about this topic that time. Yeah? So methods, see, but I've given one point here. Later on you'll understand this, I'll be explaining you. Constructors are not inherited into subclass and cannot be overridden. Can never be overridden. Okay, because they are not methods and only methods can be overridden. Write this point, I'll be explaining you later. See, what you can inherit can be overridden. What you cannot inherit, you cannot override. Simple as that. We'll be seeing these points later. Okay, one point we have to discuss. Which one? Constructor is used to initialize object level resource. I'll focus on this point now. This is a big subject. Okay. In fact, most of the authors fail to explain this, and it is with my experience I'm putting this to you. Okay. Most of any book you take, they do not explain this concept to you. Okay, they'll be talking it's used for initializing instance variable, instance variable, instance variable. They'll not cover this topic. But it is with my experience what I'm covering this, because we know Java from past 10 to 12 years. With that tremendous experience, I'll be putting this point to you. Slowly, when you write code in the future programs, you will understand what is the importance of a constructor. That is the reason mainly we use a constructor. Okay. Okay, now let's see this. Now there are some kind of resources when you're writing your applications. Right now we are not writing application. Okay, so I'm covering which point now? What is the point we are seeing now? Constructor is used to initialize object level resources. Remember this. Object level resource. Now what do you mean by object level resource? See, there are many kind of resources. Like file is on resource, database is on resource, socket means another computer connection, any connection might be on resource. Like this, we write high-end programs. We are right now not writing any big programs only. Hardly you are doing what? SOP we are printing. Okay, this is not the kind of logic we write. Actually what we do is we write some good logic. Like example, let's take this scenario now. There is one file, this file. From this file, I might want to read some information, or I might want to, reading a file now, or I want to store some information, or I might want to update some information. There's a difference. You might want to, see, there are four operations generally you do. One is reading, one is writing, means you'll write new thing. One is updating. Updating means what? Some value is there, you are modifying it. One more is deleting. Four things you can do. File is there, some content is there. My name is Ravi. Now for example I'll tell this. My name is Ravi. This is the file. One file is there, abc.txt. My name is Kana. Okay. Not movie. Okay. My name is Ravi. So now see, either reading means I want to read this value, what is there in the file. Writing means what? I want to add I train Java. This is nothing but what? Writing to the file. Extra thing. File is there, but I want to write one extra thing. Updating means value is there, I want to modify it. Like my name is Ravi Kumar. Extra I'll add. This is updating. You're changing something. Okay. So then deleting. Deleting means I'll remove this. So these are the common operations you do. Okay. Now when you want to do this, what you do, you'll write some code now. Don't bother about coding now. Coding we'll do later. But whatever you write it in a class. Remember that. In Java it's like that. Whatever you code, you are going to write logic now. That logic will be written where now? In methods. End of the day, that's what is going to happen now. So supposingly, I'll write one class now. Class, hello. See now, I'll write one code to read file. Some code I'll write here. Understood? Then one more code I'll write to write to file, read from file. These are methods you are writing. See, these are your methods. Read from file, write to file, or I'll keep it very simple, man. Read file, write file, update file, delete. Delete file means it's not deleting the file, deleting the contents of the file. So these 4 operations you want to do. Okay. So why we do this is, why we write it in a method is, if you write it in a method, you can call it n number of times. Understood? Otherwise, say in procedural, what happens? You'll write some code, and see, I'll write some code to do some logic, read. Okay, later on I'll go on writing some code, suddenly I want to read again. What will happen now? Again you have to write the same code. Again I'll go on writing some code, lastly again I want to read the file. So every time you want to read the file, what you have to do? Write the code again and again. So instead of writing the code again and again, what we do? We write the code inside method. If you write it in a method, advantage is what? You can reuse it whenever you want. You just call it, it will execute file. This is the idea. So now say, here, now the logic we have to write. To read a file, first logic what I should write? Connect to file. I have to connect to file now. Then what I should do? Read the file. This is the logic. See, generally concentrate on the concept. Writing code is very easy, I am telling you. Writing code is easiest. Hardly 1 or 2 lines will be there. But to write the code, what is the code you have to write? Connect to the file. Read the file. Then third, what you should write? Close the file. You should close all the resources. You should close it. One more now. Again, here also you have to write what? Connect to file. Then next what you have to do? Write to file. Then next, close the file. Okay. Then next, update file. What is the code you write here? Connect to file. Connecting is mandatory everywhere. Then update the file. Then close the file. Close the connection you have to write. Close the file means close the connection to the file. Then it might be delete. Connect to file. And then delete the content of the file. Not the file, delete the contents of the file. Which one you don't want? You change it. Third one, close the file. So you'll write code. You're happy you have written the code. You'll get the output also. It's not a problem. So how will you get the output now? See this. Hello, H. H is equal to new hello. In fact, see, H dot read file. What will this method do now? That method starts executing. It will connect to file, it will read, it will give the output, all that will happen. Okay, so fine. Next, I'll say H dot write to file. So it will be sending some values, it will write it to the file. It will write to file. So fine, it's writing to file. But again, what is the scenario here? Every time you call the method, yes, it is going to connect to the file, it will do the operation. But you are simply overloading the traffic now. All the methods need what? File connection. So why do you want to write this redundant code again and again everywhere? Connecting to file, closing the file and all, why do you want to write it redundantly? So when you write code now, okay, this is not only about file. See, this is your application now. This is your Java application. And you're simply connecting to the file n number of times means, what happens? The same code. See, this is PSVM now. Class demo. Now you're calling it every time. What happens? Simply hitting the file again and again. Same might be with database also. Same might be with socket also. Just I took one example, file. Connection only one is sufficient. Why do you want thousands of connections? This is wrong. Okay. So always what you should do, all these methods need the connection to the file. So instead of writing that code everywhere, better what you do, write it in one place so that it gets executed once. That's it. So why do you want to, because see, since I have written this code in a method, that is my problem. Because every time you call the method, which one? Method is getting executed. Output you are getting, but simply you are unnecessarily overloading the network traffic. That should not happen. So the same what I can do, see, I'll have one constructor. I'll have one constructor. And here, I'll write the code to only what? Connect to file. That's it. Only this statement I'll remove. I'll not write it everywhere. This code I'll remove. That part of the code I'll remove it. And I'll put it there. As soon as the object is created, what happens? The object is ready for use. It is initialized with a resource. Yes or no? And your resource actually will be one instance variable like this. I'll be showing you later. It will be one powerful. See, don't worry about what is this. This is an instance variable now. FIS is a variable of type file input stream. File in, means like int w we write now. Same way, FIS is a variable of type file input stream. It's a user defined data type. We'll see it later. It's on class. So that file input stream will be initialized in the constructor. Means actually we are still following the rule. Constructor is used for initializing what? Instance variables. We are not denying it. Constructor is used for initializing the instance variable. Only now this time our instance variable is not primitive. It's a very powerful resource now. Understood? Initially I'll show you how to work with primitives and all that. Later on when we progress, that time you'll be understanding this. Understood? So now file input stream is an instance variable. Okay. See, it's something like this. You write now int w. W is a variable of type what? Int. Same way FIS is a variable name of type file input stream. Understood? So now what happens is when you say hello h is equal to new hello, the constructor gets executed. And it is guaranteed that constructor is executed only once. I want that only to happen now. I don't want that code to execute n number of times. Understood? I don't want that code to execute n number of, perfectly done now. And after that I'll only call the methods. So it will read the file, it will write the file. I can update file, anything you want you do. 1000 times you call the method, nobody is going to question you. But connection only one I want. Understood now? So this is the basic idea. Now closing the resource, you might have one more question. Actually fact is you should not close the resource here. I'll be showing you one more location where you have to actually close. Because say when I say read file, what happens? It will read the file. Now this code is eliminated. We are removing this. So you should see methods are going to only use the resource. I told you no? Methods are only going to use the resource. Constructor is used for only initializing the resource. They designed it technically. Now where do you release the resource? You should never release any resource in the method. Understood? You should release it in one more place that I show you later. So where to write this code I'll be teaching you later, because right now what happens, as soon as you call the method, connection is closed to the file. Now if I call write file, what will happen? Read file will happen. You close the connection. Write file, it cannot use the file now. Why? Connection has been closed. So I'll show you later. You should not write the code here. That's it. Again, this is also the same problem. What is the problem? You are writing it multiple times. Close the file, close the file, close the file. Why do you want to write the same code multiple times? Write it in one place, which will be executed only once. But during the destruction of object. That will be written in the place where the code executes during the destruction. So right now I am talking about creation. Destruction we will see later. So this code will be written, close the file, close the file, close the file will be written in one place where it executes only once during the destruction of object. I will be telling you little about that now, but not fully. There is one method called as finalize. Okay, there is one method called as finalize. I will be telling you about, see I am not talking about finalize today. You can write your finalize method and write the, close the file here. That code you write here. That's it. So do not have to write it here. Just I told you that I'll be covering it later. Now this finalize method, no, it will execute only once. When? During the creation, destruction of object. Okay, during the, see, constructor is executed during creation of object. Finalize is executed during destruction of object. Okay, during destruction of object. When the objects are destructed, we'll see later. I'm not talking about destruction now. We are only talking still about what? Creation. Okay, this gets executed only once during the creation of object. Finalize gets executed only once during the destruction of object. Okay, methods will be executed n number of times. This is a perfect design they are giving it to you. Understood? So there is no confusion later, you'll find. So slowly again, what as I am telling you, we are learning how to write a class only. Understood? We are not deviating from the topic. We are still learning how to write a class only. Yeah? So we'll be seeing this. This close the file will be written into which one now? Sorry. Yeah. Close the file. Close the file. Close the file. Close the file. Will be moved into this place. Only once you'll write, not multiple times. There you'll write connect to file. That's it. Now why it is called as object level resource? That's the next question. A resource which is required by two or more methods is called as object level resource. A resource which is required in two or more methods is called as object level resource. Now all these methods require what? File connection, no? So make it as object level. Okay, are you clear with this? Are you clear? Okay, there will be sometime scenario. You will not write so many methods. Only one method you want to write. What is that? I want to read the file. That's it. Okay, I think that I'll see later. Are you clear with this? So understanding what are object level resources? Object level resource means a resource which is used by two or more methods. Okay, a resource which is used by two or more methods. So that kind of a resource we always initialize it in the constructor. So constructor is used for initializing what? Object level resources. Constructor is used for initializing. Constructor is used for initializing object level resources. Are you clear this? Again, if you see on the other side is what? Constructor is used for initializing what? Instance variables. Still we are continuing. I am not saying no. File input stream is an instance. So the whatever points you have seen all are correct only. Constructor is used for initializing instance variables. Constructor is used for initializing state of the object. Constructor is used for initializing object level resources. All these points are very clear. Okay. I am not saying they are what is that? Wrong. They are correct. But I justified each and every statement for you. Yeah. Now it is file input stream. Supposingly if it is database connection, your instance variable will be different type. It will be of type what? Your instance variable will be of type. See, now I'll show you. If your which one? Supposingly I want database connection. That time your instance variable will be something like this. Class test. Your instance variable will be what you know? Connection. Con is a variable of type. Any name you give. Connection. So in test class what will I do? Anyway, most of you might not be doing database. That's why I didn't cover this topic. I took the example of file. In a database also what might happen? You will be storing values like this. That's one more secondary device. We'll be seeing it later. So in the database what will happen? Again values will be stored. Again you might read a value, or you might update a value, or you might delete a value. Yes or no? Same operations will happen. Either you will store the value, update the value, delete the value, or whatever, the same four operations. So for that what you do? You can say store value to DB, or we actually technically say it as what? Insert, save, or we can say save. You can take anything. You can write one method called as save. Then you can have one more method called as delete. Like that you can write more methods. Save, update, delete and read. You can write more methods. But all the methods need database connection now. So where will you get the database connection? Here. Get DB connection here. So in the methods what will you do? Use the connection. Here also what will you do? Use the connection. So methods will only use it. So these are called as object level resource. A resource which is required in two or more methods is called as object level resource. Okay, I can write more methods and all of them. So instead of writing get the database connection in every method, what you do? Write it in one place. As soon as the object is created, your object has got the connection to database now, and all the methods can only use the connection. This is the basic idea of programming. And if you want to release your resource, public void finalize. Here also you'll have one finalize. See, this is your class now. Public void finalize. Still now I have not introduced the finalize method. I'll be introducing it shortly to you. In this finalize method, what will you do? Close the database connection. You'll close the database connection. Are you following now? So this is how you write classes. Now it can be a socket resource also. There also you'll write what in the constructor? You'll get the connection to the socket. In the methods you'll use the socket connections. And in the finalize method, what will you do? Close the socket connection. This is how actually programming is done. Okay, this is how the programming will be done now. Are you clear with this? Okay, so this is how the code will be written now. Are you clear with this? Okay, so see, we are still not deviating. We are still seeing how to write a class. And according to you, a class means joke. Yes or no? Which class? Java class, not my class. Okay, according to you, do you know what a class is in Java? You say, oh, I know what a class is. You neglect that. That is why you struggle so much. Understood? So a class has to be designed technically like this. Okay, generally till now how you are writing classes where, you know, in college also how are you writing? Class, whatever, hello, int x, int y. That's not the kind of code you write in company. We write powerful code like this. Yeah, so I'm taking you to that level. Anyway, I've introduced all the members to you. What are the members? Instance variables, constructor, methods. Slowly I'll introduce finalize also. After I introduce finalize, you'll understand everything. Yeah, creating of an object I have taught you, using an object I have shown you. Destructing I have not taught you still. I'll be covering that. All these points clear now? Okay. Any questions here?
Like see
Blink out.
current
Okay, one more thing now I show you. We have written the code. Okay. I show you when you write code, you should not, all these points about constructor clear now? All these points about constructor clear? Any questions you are having? Any questions you are having? Yeah, we'll be seeing it. Constructor is a big topic, and this topic what I gave you now, this concept what I taught you about constructor, you'll not find it in any books. You read any book, they'll be not talking about this. Okay, this is with experience what I'm telling you now. So that's why it's a bit difficult for you to understand, because you have never come across anybody talking about this point. Understood? You have never come across it. So this I'll be teaching you. With practically I'll teach you, simply not theoretical. I will get the database connection using constructor. I will be inserting values using methods. Practically I'll show you everything. But first learn how to write a class. Understood? First learn how to write a class, not theoretical. I'm not telling theoretically it will be done like this. Practically each and everything will be seeing it very clearly. Now one more last thing now, when you're writing members of the class, you can't write statements as members of the class now. That part I'll cover and we'll move to the next topic now. Okay, see this. This is an instance variable. This is a constructor. This is one more constructor. 3 constructors. All this I explained to you. Now I'll write if this is invalid. Okay, if W is greater than 3, you can write anything. That's your wish. System.out.println. width is less. I'm not writing else, it's not mandatory to have else now, but it will give me error. What it is, it's not understand. So if at all I want to write really this code, I have an option. What is the option? Either write it in a method or you write it in constructor. So I'll first write it in a method for you. Valid. Following now? Following now? Now I can call. Box P1 is equal to new box. I'll call 5, 6, 7. Whatever values you want to call, and now I can call B1 dot M1. I can call this method. Similarly, that method I can call in what? B2 also. You can call that method. It's a name. See, we are giving name to that. But remember how you write the logic. Okay. So don't write statements inside a class which gives you errors. Somewhere I am calling M1, width is less. Okay, if it is not executed. If it is greater, it is not getting executed. No, sorry, greater. You can print any statement, that is your wish. If it is greater than 3, it will print greater. So for this it will print 2 times it will print, I think. It is greater. See, here also it's printing greater on the top. Here also it's printing in the last. Because in both the objects, W is greater than 3. Okay, but if I store a value like 2, it will print only once. But anyway, that logic is different. See, now width is greater is printed only once. Yeah? So fine. So if you want, now see this statement also, I'll write it in a constructor. But it will execute only when this particular constructor is called. Understood? It will execute only when you call the constructor with 3 parameters, but only once. So you decide where you want to write the code. Understood? But do not write statements inside a class. So now see this. It will now M1 I'll remove. Now what I'll do is I'll pass 5 to this one. Now it will execute the value, no doubt about this. This one will get executed. But for B2 it will not execute. Yes or no? You remove the M1 now, B1 dot M1 method, because you have written the code in the constructor. First of all, you should not write such silly logics in constructor. Very clearly I told you, constructor is used for what? Initialization purpose. Now don't write such kind of code. But I am telling you, if you write, what happens? Okay, if you write. Okay, because generally we tell, this is good thing, don't do it. See, this is good, do it like this is bad, don't do it, we'll tell you. But still your question will be, if I do the bad thing, what will happen? So obviously I have to show you without coding only. So I am showing you, that's it. So anyway, see now it gets executed. For that constructor it executes. Width is greater. Here width is greater, but still it is not getting executed because I have not written it in that constructor. Clear? So any questions now? So this is how you write the members. So do not, even on simple SOP now, see this. On simple SOP cannot be written where? Inside a class. One simple statement like SOP cannot be written. This is error. It is outside everything. Statements are, in simple words I put it now. Statements are not members of class. Over. Are you clear this? A class can have only what? Members. And statements are not considered to be members of the class. As simple as this. It will give you error. Yeah? Any questions now? Okay. Fine. Now one more topic we'll see now. See, till now I was teaching you how to write the class and how to work with the members. Yes or no? How to write the class, how to work with the members. But if you carefully observe, exactly members also, we are accessing it in same class as well as we are accessing the member in another class. The members of class box. Which are the members of class box? WHND, constructor, volume method, we are having some members. So when I finish writing the class, what we generally do, we access that members in the same class. Okay, like see WH and D, where do you access? In the same class. See this how you access. I'm having 3 instance variables. Now I can use it in all the members now. You can access it in all the constructors, yes or no? So now in the class you are accessing here. See here, notice we are accessing it in the class. How do you access the instance variables inside the class? Directly. But how you access the same member outside the class? Dot operator. You know the difference. Here you will access it directly. There outside the class, how will you access? Dot operator. But to access the members also, what you have to do? Box B1 is equal to new box 1 2 3, objects get created. Now you will access B1.w, B1.h, B1.d. See, outside the class how you access, inside the class how you access. Just observe that. Are you following now? See the code here. You are accessing now. In this constructor also you are accessing now. Second constructor, third constructor also you are accessing now. Fourth constructor also you are accessing now. Method you are accessing now. Wherever you want you can access. At the same time, I have shown you how to access the variable in another class. So now we will concentrate on methods. So see, are you clear? I am coming to the topic of what? Till now I was explaining how to access variables inside the same class. At the same time we are seeing how to access the members in another class. Okay, both. Okay, even in volume method, see this now. I can access the members. Int L. L is equal to W into H into D. Return L. So again, what do you observe here? We are learning how to access the variables inside the class. We are learning how to access the members outside the class. Which member? Variables. Variables. Now, methods I'll bring. I'll bring on M1 method. This is what method name? You can have more methods. Right now there is no logic inside this. I'll print only SOP inside M1. Done. Now how will you access this method outside the class? B1 dot M1. So I'll access it with the help of dot operator. Now one more. Void M2. SOP inside M2. There are two methods now. Okay. See, once I create the object, I can access both the methods. But how did I access it outside the class? B1 dot M1, B1 dot M2. Okay. My requirement is this now. Now, can M2 use M1 or invoke M1? So yes, my M2 can call M1. It is there inside the same class. How will it call? Directly call it without dot operator. Like how you are accessing variables here everywhere. Similarly, you can call method here directly. See, if I want M1 outside, I have to call like this. But if I want M1 inside the same class, directly I will call. So now, if you want to, you call M2 method. Simply call M2 method. M2 itself will call what? M1. That's it. But the concept what you have to understand is, if a method of one class wants to invoke the method of same class, no need of any dot operator, directly you can call it. Like other way around, if a instance variable of a class, means if you want to access the instance variables in the same class, no need of dot operator. Similarly, if you want to access the method of the same class inside the same class, no need of dot operator, you can access it. So you should know how to access the members inside the class also, how to access the members outside the class also. Means you should know how to work with your class. Clear? Now you might have a question. What is the use of M2 calling M1? Next question definitely will have that. Yes sir? Why should I call it? See, methods contain reusable logic. Sometimes what happens? Some code you want, you'll write it in M1. So the caller will decide. If he wants to call only M1 logic, he'll call M1. It will execute. Supposing he wants to execute both the logic, what will you do? He'll call M2. M2 will call M1, no. As simple as that. So one method he'll always call another method just to reuse the logic. Understood? It's up to you whether you want to call or not, but Java supports this. That's what I'm trying to say. Right now it looks no use, but when you go on writing big logics, this will become very important. How will one method invoke another method in the same class? Are you clear with all this? You call M2 now. M2 itself will call what? M1. You want me to type and show this? No need, no? So you call M2. M2 itself will call what? M1. But the concept behind this is different, not output. Like how does M2 access M1 method which is present in the same class? That is very important here. And you can call it in any line. Either you call M1 in first line of M2, or you can call M1 in last line of M2. That is your wish. First line, second line, third line. Means when you want that logic to execute, call. It will execute. When and where you want that logic to execute, call it. It will execute. Done now? Any questions? Yeah? You understood all this now? Okay. So your members can be accessed within the same class. Variables also can be accessed. Methods also can be accessed. Actually this is easy. Till now what was happening? We are accessing the members in another class. That is why we are taking time. Dot operator and all that. That is what we are saying. All this is clear now. So fine. You can type this and see. Okay. This has been done. Next. We'll go with one more new keyword. One more keyword of there are so many keywords now in Java. You know that? How many keywords are there in Java? 50 keywords. Okay, 50 keywords are there. Among them, one more keyword now, which I'll be introducing is private. First, I'll introduce this keyword to you. Okay, in fact, this comes under a topic called as Access Specifiers. There's a subject which I'll be taking in depth later. Access Specifier. In Java, there are 4 types of access you can give to your members of the class. Your members are there now. For them, you can give some privileges. Where your member can be accessed, where it cannot be accessed. You can restrict the accessibility of your members. Right now, your member is getting accessed outside the class. Okay, you can restrict. If you want, it will not be accessed outside the class. All that you can do. So for that, there are 4 types of access Java supports. To support that 4 types of access, Java is giving you 3 keywords. To support that 4 types of access, Java is giving you 3 keywords. So there are 4 types of access specifier. Put in simple words. But I'll not. My topic is not access specifier. Okay. This in depth I'll be covering it later. Okay. So access specifier is used for specifying the type of access to the members of the class. Or in simple word, it defines the scope of members of the class. It defines the scope of members of the class. We'll be seeing it later. Don't bother. One of the access specifier present here, there are 4 types of access are there. Access 4 are there, but keywords 3 are there. Understand that point. Access 4 types of access is there, but keywords 3 are there. Private, protected, public. These are 3 keywords. Okay. Now I'll be talking only about private type of access. I'll not talk about other access. I'll not explain you protected access also. I'll not talk about public access also. That afterwards I'll be doing it, because one special topic is there called as access specifiers. There I'll talk about all the things. Yeah. So private is a keyword now. So I'll be explaining you this private access. See, till now what was happening, you can create an object and you can access your member. Yes or no? How do you access a member? You have to create object and then start accessing the member. Sometimes it so happens you do not want your members to be accessed outside the class. Requirement will come. Okay, scenarios will come where you want to restrict your member from being accessed from outside the class. So that is when we start using private keyword. Understood? Let's see this with an example only. I'll show you. Class test. You can give any name. That's your wish. I'll have one variable by name X. First, I'll show you only with this member, one single member. Then I'll add more members. Class demo. PSVM. Test T. What happens? A variable is getting, sorry, you are declaring a variable T of type test. More than that, nothing you are doing. Object has still not been created. T is equal to new test. What happens? Object gets created now. Valid. So in this is JVM now. In your JVM, what happens? An object of test is created. It's having one variable of type X. Address is 150. It is there. And the default value of X is 0. I'll name it as T1. Done now? And if I want, I can work with that X. How will I work with that X? You print SOP T1.X. It will print you what? 0. I'll initialize with dot operator, and later on I'll print 5. All this is correct, but I'm able to access now. Don't think about what? Print, initializing, don't think about, but I'm able to access X. Sometimes I do not want my variable to be accessed outside the class. That is when you can use a keyword called as private. Finished. When you create the object, X is there, but I cannot access it. It is present, it is there inside the object, but I cannot access it. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. I cannot work. So private type of access restrict. Private types of access, a type of access restricts your member from being accessed outside the class. You cannot access it outside. Okay, so if you do not want your member to be accessed outside the class, make your member as private. Which member? Now I have completed only variable. Now we'll see method and all that. Next we'll see that. Okay, so are you clear with this? You cannot access your private member outside the class because it is private. Okay, so that is called as, see, if you want private type of access, first of all you understand the type of access. Private type of access does not allow you to access the member outside the class. So if you want that type of an access, use the keyword called as private. If you want that private type of access, use the keyword called as private. It's the other way around actually. Okay, generally people tell if you use private keyword you cannot access it. Okay, but there is one type of accessibility is there called as private type of access. So if you want the private type of access, you have to use the keyword called as private, and if you have a private access, will never allow you to access your member outside the class. Done. Now how to initialize X now? I have created object. How to initialize X? How to use X? That becomes the next question. Option is up to you. So one, I can initialize with what? Method now. I can initialize with method. See, I cannot access now. So to initialize, only 3 options I got. You know how to initialize the instance variables. We had seen 4 were there. Hard coding, dot operator, methods, constructor. So now we have got only 3 options here. Either hard coding or method or constructor. Only 3 approaches. I cannot access and initialize with dot operator. Hard code if you do, every object will have the same value. If I hard code, every object will have the same value. So we don't like this. I can go with the help of method. I show you method first, then I'll come to constructor. So I'll write one method, void m1 int p, x is equal to p. Now when I create the object test t1, t1 is equal to new test, object is there and it is having one method called as m1 int p, x is equal to p. This is how the memory gets allocated. I cannot access x, yes, fine, but definitely I can access m1 and send 5. I'm calling the method, but I'm accessing the method with the help of dot operator, sending the value 5, 5 is given to p, p is giving it to x, and x gets initialized. This is one way. Similarly, test t2. t2 is equal to new test. Again one more memory gets allocated. Here also you are having one x, here also you are having m1 method, int p, x is equal to p, the default value of x is 0. Now I'll call t2 dot, this is t2 now. I cannot access x, this is error. I cannot work with x, but definitely I can call t2 dot m1 and send a value of 10. So this will be initialized to 10, it overwrites. Are you understanding how you work with private members? Private members have to be worked with inside the same class. If you want to use x, use it here only. not outside the class. You can never work with private members outside the class. Private members are accessible only within the same class. Yeah? So, but this is a bad approach. We should never do the initialization with help of methods, because you can overwrite now. That should not happen. So what will I do now? Constructor I will take. Remove that, bring a constructor. X is equal to P. Perfect now. What a design you see now. Test T1. T1 is equal to new test of 5. What happens now? So I'll name this as test now. Assume that I have removed M1 method. Assume that I have removed M1 method. So you're having one. So when you say new, what happens? When you say new, what happens? Same thing, test T1, new, memory will be allocated. And in that memory I am calling the constructor. As soon as I call the constructor, what happens? Argument is passed and X is initialized. Finished. Now you modify the value inside that object. How you want to modify? Let me see. You stored a value there now. Try to modify that value in this object. Till now you had all possible ways of exposing data and it was getting modified. You could have changed the value with the help of dot operator. You could have changed it with the help with a method. Nothing you can do. Now 5 value is secure. I can only use that value, but I can never modify that value. Clear this? So objects will secure your data. So all these days I am trying to teach you how do you encapsulate the data. Now we are reaching there almost. Tomorrow I will be going more in depth into this. So you cannot modify the value using dot of T1 dot X is equal to 9. Can you change? No. Next. Test T2. T2 is equal to new test of 10. Again new memory will be allocated. In this memory I am sending the value of 10. It is given to P. P will give it to what? X. Finished. Now see, we get these values dynamically. I keep telling you always. As soon as I get the value, what will I do to make it secure? I will allocate memory, and in that memory I will store this value. Simple as that. 5 value is stored in this memory now. 10 value has been stored in this memory. Tomorrow you will be seeing very clearly this. Okay, and we can only use the value now. No, nobody can modify that value. Nobody. However you want to try, it is not possible to manipulate that value. Your data will be secure. Understood? Anyway, that is from seeing security point of view. But other side we are seeing the story of what? Private. Private members cannot be accessed outside the class. Clear? Let's come back to private first. Security and all I will talk later. Private members are not accessible outside the class, and if you make a variable as private, nobody can access it. Are you clear? Next. Can I make my method as private? Yes, you can make methods also as private. Okay. So now let's see this. I will have void M1 method. SOP inside M1. Now if I create the object, test T1 is equal to new test, T1.M1 I can call now. It is there. Now when you create the object, what is the extra method you are having now? M1 method is present. Test T2 is equal to new test. Here also in this object, see this is T1, this is T2. Two objects assume that we have created. M1, T1.M1 also I can call, T2.M1 also I can call. But I don't want M1 to be accessed. So I'll make it as over. Now M1 cannot be accessed outside the class. Here call it, let me see. T1.M1. This M1 I have removed, man. Remember this. Don't get confused now. We should not initialize with the help of methods now. Understood? That I will remove now. So this M1 is there now. What will I do? You call it now. T1.M1 or T2.M1. You cannot access it because it is private. Private members are not accessible outside the class. Okay. If you want to call it, what should I do now? I'll write one more method, M2. Now you will understand why one method will call another method. M2 will call which one now? M1. SOP inside M2. See the flow now. M1 I can't call, but definitely I can call what? M2 I can call. And M2 will call which one now? M1. M2 will call M1. So private members, understand the concept, private members are not accessible outside the class. So you decide when you are writing the members of your class, You decide whether you will make your member as private or not private. That is your lookout. Language is supporting with all this. So we are seeing the support of the language. We are seeing the support of the language. Clear? So now M2 can be accessed because it's not having private type of access. Are you clear? M1 I can't call. Okay. Similarly, your constructor also can be made as private. But this time I cannot access it. If you make your constructor as private, what happens? You cannot create the object. You are accessing here, no? Understood? So generally you will not make constructors as private. If you make it as private, they are also not accessible outside the class. Yeah? You cannot call it, you cannot access it. If you can access it, till now what were you doing? You are accessing it, new, test. It will not be possible now. So when you are having members of your class, your members, all the members what you learned now, variables, methods and constructor, they can be given private type of access. They can be given. Now it is your lookout whether you want to make it as private or not, and when to make private and all that story slowly you start understanding. Okay, generally you will not make constructor as private, because if you make your constructor as private, you cannot access it in another class, and if you cannot access it in another class, you cannot create the object now. You cannot create the object of class test. So can I stop the creation of an object of a class? This might be an interview question. Yes, one of the way to stop creation of an object of a class is by making the constructor as private. One of the way. There are many ways you can stop the creation of an object of a class. I'll make the constructor as what now? Private. Finish. Now objects can never be created without the execution of constructor now. Just now we learnt all that. Objects can never be created without the execution of constructor. Same thing we are seeing now. How will you create the object? Your constructor is not accessible. An object can never be created without the execution of constructor. Yeah? If you want, you can write one more constructor which is having a different overloading. That you can call, but not this one. That and all we'll see. But just I introduced what is private. So private type of access will not allow you to access the members the class in another class. Which class I am talking now? Demo class. The members of class test, we are accessing it in demo class. It is not possible. That is what I mean by a class. One member of class, you are trying to access it in another class, demo class. It is not possible. Clear? I'll type this and finish it off now, faster. Okay, so I'll give you the errors. Similarly, what will happen now? Class box is there now. Your WHD will become what? Private. Finished. You can overload the constructors. Write the volume. See what a brilliant class you have got now. Box B1 is equal to new box of 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 values will come dynamically. Put it inside the object. Okay, I'll explain that. See, almost all we are done with the designing a class. Almost all. So once you know how to design a class, it will be very easy to write the code for you. You can create one more folder. Private access, any name you want to give. First I'll start off with variable, then I'll progress. Class test as we took. Int x. Now I'll create the object test t1. T1 is equal to your test. Yes, sir. If you want, it will print 0. You know that, no? It will print 0. T1 dot x is equal to 5. I can give value like this, and after assigning the value also, I can still print it. It will print what? 5. But all these 3 lines, I am showing you, we are accessing the variable x. Don't think I am printing, initializing and all that. We are seeing how to access x. So then, after that, okay, let's see this. Yes, if you want, I can create one more object. Test T2. T2 is equal to new test, value of x in T2 is plus T2 dot x. I'll give the value as 10. Sorry, T2 dot x. Value of x in T2 is plus T2 dot x. Now I can see very comfortably. Yes, 0, 5, 0, 10. But now we'll make this as private. So private is a keyword. The keyword highlights, see there, blue color. Okay, so it is ready. So now you try to compile. Just only one change I have done. I cannot access it. What is the error you get? X has private access in test. Why are you accessing it? Compiler error. So what I should do now? I cannot access. Either I have to remove the access, or I have to choose some other mechanism. So to initialize now means to print also, this is not possible. To initialize also, this is not possible. So what will I do now? One is I can go for hard coding. If I go for hard coding, okay, I cannot print the value, that's different. But if you want to see the value, I can write one method, see there, void fun. Value of x is plus x. So if you want to use the value in that object, either I can return the value. Okay, just I show you now. See, void fun. First let's see now how to work. If I hard coded, okay, so now I can't print like this. This is error, no? Nor can I modify, nor can I print again. So what should I do now? T1 is equal to new test. T1 dot fun I can call, that's it. Same it as T2. All this I can't access. All I can do is what? T2.fun. So what is the drawback of hard coding? All objects will have the, if it is private, see now, hard coding is not the good solution. But sometimes even all objects, if you want the same value, use it. So it is 5 and 5. Okay, but I can't use that value. If you want that value to be used in this class, what should you do? I want to use 5 here. I cannot access 5, but definitely I can get that value here. How? Huh? We can add one method like you can return here only, man, if you want. Int. So what value will you return? Yeah, this is possible. I cannot modify it there, but definitely I can return the value. This is possible. Now I can use it, yes, here. Because you might have a question, what is the advantage of storing the value but I am not able to use it, means you can return it. So what will I do? Int x or int p, or I will take int a is equal to, same way, means it is returning. If you are interested, accept, else leave it. But if you don't accept it, you will lose the value. So now I can print SOP value of a is a from T1 is plus a. Sorry, I'm calling the method. Yeah, here. So we'll print the print statement also there itself. Similarly, you can print. So this is how you have to work now if it is private. So it will give the value. Value of a from T2 is plus a. Clear? A is already initialized. Remove the declaration again. Both places it will print what? 5 and 5. Okay, so that's why we should not hard code, but I can use it. Anyway, this is a wrong approach. We'll delete this now straight away, or let us keep it. We'll comment it. Okay, next what will I do? I'll go for to initialize it, I can go for a method. Void init. Any method name you take, that's your wish. Initialize, okay. I'll write int a. You can initialize like this now. X is equal to a. But this is a bad approach. If you initialize like this, what happens? Every time you call the method, it overwrites now. You are keeping the value there. It is private, but it gets modified. I want my data to be secure. It should not be accessible also, plus it should not be modified also. Two things now you are looking. So let me show you this first. See, test T1. T1 is equal to new test. Afterwards, what will I do? I'll call init method. And I'll send a value 5. Will not get any return type. But if you want to use that value, return it. Okay, using it, leave now. So, okay. To print the value, I'll print it. I'll show you. I'll make this as void fun. I'll return all this. Yeah. So see this now. I've got two methods. One which will initialize the value, one which will print the value. Okay. So I'll say test T1. T1 is equal to new test. After that, I'll call the method. Which method I'll call? T1 dot fun. So what will be the answer? Install will comment off, not required. So test T1 now. T1 is equal to new test. Init method will initialize the value. Fun method will print the value. Fine, it is fine. But again, if I call these two methods, what will happen? The value will be changed now. T1 dot init of if I'll print 10. And again, if I call, what will happen? In the same object, value has been modified. This should not happen. This should not happen. Understood? So I want it to be secure also, but plus it should not be modified also. So that's the reason what I'll do now. Okay, we will not initialize with help of method. Instead of this, I'll depend on a constructor. That's all the change. Okay, so once you initialize with the constructor, what happens? The best way now you can see. See what a powerful mechanism they are giving you to secure your data. In C, you know, if you store your data in which one? Structure, anybody can modify it. Anybody can use it anywhere. But here your data is going to be so secure that nobody can touch it now. They can only use it. We'll see how they'll use it. Okay, we'll be seeing all that. Okay, see this now. Private index, we are initializing now. And if you want, I can print the value. Now see this. Test T1. T1 is equal to new test of 5. That's it. Okay, same way test T2. T2 is equal to new test of 10. And I'll only call the method. That's it. I can only use the value, but I cannot modify it or I cannot access it also. It's secure now. So now in both the objects you are having different values. In one it is 5, in one is 10, but I cannot modify it. It is secure now. So that's why we take the help of constructor. Try to modify it now. What way I want it to be modified? Show me now. Not modified. So that is why we make our which one? Variables as private. Okay, next. Now we'll go with methods. You understood how why you make the variables as private? Technically you should know all this. Now okay. Now I'll show you how to make methods as private. See now after creating the object, I can call fun also, I can call m1 also, no? Valid or not? I can call fun also, I can call m1 also. In T2 also I can call what? T2 dot m1. Yes. So it will execute inside m1, it will execute. Inside m1, from both objects I called, it is getting executed. I don't want m1 to be accessed now. Yes, you can make it as private. If you make it as private, what will happen now? Error. So if you want that to be executed, means private members are accessible where? Only within the same class. Remember that. Now M2 is not private, no. M2 is not private, yes. But M2 can access what? So M2 is accessible outside the class. So I'll access M2 outside, but M2 will access M1 inside. So private members, if you want to work with private members, you have to work with that in the same class. You cannot access it outside the class. So now finished. M1 is not accessible, fine. But T1 dot M2 I'll call. Again T2 dot M2 I'll call. Now M2 only will call what? M1. Inside M1, M2. Inside M1, M2. Yeah, private members have to be accessed only within the same class. Now I'll show you making private constructor. If I make my constructor as private, what? I cannot access it. Means I cannot create the object only. So one way to stop creation of an object of your class is what? There are many ways you can stop the creation of object of your class. Okay, one way is by making the constructor as private. Finished. If your constructor is private, it cannot be accessed. Means you cannot call it. And you know one more rule. An object has to be created means constructor has to execute. Without the execution of constructor, no object gets created in Java. So when you are not able to access and call it, there is no question of the object getting created. Yeah, understood what is private? Okay. So last now you see how you will design the class box. Simple, I'll show and finish it off. Class box. So you'll have int, you make it as private now. Private int w, private int h, private int d. Now all the members are private. So what are the different ways you can initialize? Hard coding, dot operator, method, constructor. Among them, which is the best? Constructor. So see this. Means you can overload the constructors, that's your approach. But I show you with only one constructor. So w is equal to x, h is equal to y, d is equal to z. And if you want to print the volume, yes, I can do it. Int L is equal to W into H into D, return L. This also is correct. I am not making this as private. Now see, it is up to me to decide among all these members which one should be private, which one should not be private. Now one more method I will write, void show, which will print all the values of SOP, value of, because I can't print the values this time, H and D is plus W plus H plus D. Okay, so now your class is ready. So now see, class demo, public static void main. See now, box B1. Assuming that we get these values dynamically from UI or database somewhere. Okay. See this box. First I'll execute this. B1. B1 is equal to new box of 1, 2, 3. So new memory gets allocated. In this new memory, what do you have now? You will have W, H and D. You will have the constructor int X, int Y, int Z. W is equal to X, H is equal to Y, D is equal to Z. Next what you will have? Volume method also you will have. Then you will have show method. All the code will be there, man. Just you write it again. You know how the memory gets allocated. So when you are allocating the memory only, you are sending the values 1, 2, 3. So these values will be given to X, Y, Z and they will be stored into. So as soon as you are creating the object, immediately you are storing the value. It's a ready object now. It's ready for usage. It is ready for usage. So apart from that, see now I can call the method b1.volume. Now volume gets executed now. I can accept it. You declare your variable int z or int something you take int p. P is equal to b1 dot volume. It's a ready object. You can use it now. SOP volume of box b1 is plus p. Similarly, you can print b1 dot show also, because I want to print the values of WH and D means I cannot access it. Finished. Okay, are you clear this? Try to modify now. Cannot. So what happens? See, these values will get dynamically. In the program you'll get it. See like this. Int x, something like okay, int L is equal to 1. or okay, I take like this. Int I is equal to 1, int j is equal to 2, int k is equal to 3. So you'll get these values dynamically. Once you get these values dynamically, what will you do? You store it in a variable like this. After storing it in a variable, these variables you'll be using as what? Arguments. So that you'll put it into, means you'll allocate the memory and you'll put it off here now. 1, 2, 3. It is stored now, secure. Now you can never modify the value which is stored in WHND. It is secure. But definitely I can modify the values of IJK. We are not bothered about that. But we are seeing now the 1, 2, 3 value which entered your program or application is being made secure. I allocated memory and in that memory I dumped the values of 1, 2, 3. And now nobody can modify that. And only these restricted methods can use that value. Nobody else. So this is the idea of data and binding, which I'll be explaining you tomorrow. So if you want to do encapsulation, we are using which data type now? Class data type. So which I'll be talking more in depth very clearly tomorrow. Understood? So these methods only can use that data. Nobody can use that value stored in WHND. Done? Similarly, I can write box B2. I'll get some more values. They'll be stored in some more variables like LMN. Okay, see, I'll get L is equal to 5, M is equal to 6, N is equal to 7. Now simply I write B2 is equal to new box of L, M, N. So what will I do? Allocate memory, put these values into that object. Now I cannot modify. Now B2.volume I can call, B2.show I can call. New memory gets allocated, same way, yes or no? And I say B2 is equal to new box. WHND, here also you are having one constructor. If you want to overload, I am not stopping that. So now in this object, what are you doing? You are putting the values of 5, 6, 7. So here it will be stored 5, 6, 7. They will come dynamically, man. I show you. Finished. These 1, 2, 3 stored in that object. 5, 6, 7 is stored in this object. Now which value you want to use? Use. As simple as this. Now data is not going to be manipulated. So you design your class in such a way that it will not be manipulating the data, but it will only store the data in such a way that you can use the data only in the same place. This is a brilliant feature of Java's user-defined data type. In C, what happens now? You'll store the data, but you have to access it outside and then use it. The values when you store, generally what happens? User-defined data is used for what? Storing value. To use it, what we do? We get the value and use it. But here it's not that. You will store it on one place and you'll use it in that place only. Understood? Storage also will happen in the same location. Usage also will happen in the same location. Only these methods can use it. Who can access 1, 2, 3 now? There's a restricted access. Only volume and show can use that data. Nobody else can touch that data. In this object 5, 6, 7, who can use that data? This volume and this show can use that data. Nobody else can touch the data. But in procedural, what happens? You have a value and that can be modified by anybody, which is a big risk. So there, to give security to your data, only you spend half of your time in coding. But here data security comes to you so easily. There you will be writing half of your code for what? Only for data security purpose. Here implicitly it is coming to you. Just write the code in a class, finished. Automatically you will get the data security, and by making the members as private. Understood now? See, this IJK, now in procedural what happens? Understand this, procedural. I'll have a value int I is equal to 100. Now anybody can use it now throughout the program. It's something like global. But here what happens? That value I'll put it off inside an object. You modify, but this value already stored it somewhere now. See here also IJK received the values from the user. But once I received the values, what did I do? I put it off inside an object like this, like IJK. These are arguments now. You modify IJK, we are not bothered now. That value has already been put into what? One object. Nobody can manipulate that data. This is the idea. This is the idea of binding what? Data with methods. Okay, tomorrow I'll explain you clearly encapsulation. See, one side I told you, we have to study what the user-defined. User-defined data in Java has got two uses. One is for storing values, other one is for implementing OOPs. You have to study both. And after that you have to understand why is this data type doing both. That also you have to understand. So it's a big thing. what we are looking for now. Okay, and if you get this concept, all languages are telling the same story. In C++ also they tell the same story. Java also, because we are learning OOPs here, we are not learning what? See, if you want to learn OOPs, you can use any language to learn OOPs. It's not that you have to learn Java only to learn OOPs. It's not, see, you are thinking you are learning Java, but I am telling it in a different way. You are learning OOPs in Java. If you in C++ also, if you go now, same thing you have to learn. You have to learn first OOPs and then study what? The language. Means the OOPs can be learnt in any language. It's up to you, choose. But in C++, learning OOPs is very, very difficult. Their syntax is complicated. Pointer concept is there. Big headache is there. Understood? And on top of that, C++ is not a good language. So directly learn OOPs in Java itself. So before you enter any IT industry, one object-oriented programming language is mandatory today. One object-oriented programming language is mandatory. Without that, you can't survive in the industry. One of the easiest object-oriented programming languages, Java. Remember this again. If you can't do it here, you can't do it anywhere. Understood? If you can't do it here, you can't do it in any object-oriented language. It can be COBOL also, it can be C++ also. So we are learning OOPs with the help of Java. Keep it like this, straight. Understood? You are thinking I am learning Java. Java is over already. When it was over? And I finished at the 9 features of the Java language, it is already over. We are learning OOPs now. Clear? So go with this, and this is the idea what they give you. Tomorrow I will be explaining more clearly about what is encapsulation and all. Clear? Tomorrow you will get the idea, little idea you will get about writing a class. Okay, that's it then.